My name's Dalton Reed, and I spent 2 years deployed in Iraq. Most days were boring as hell. You sit in the heat, check vehicles, and count down until you can go home. But there was this one night in October 2019 that still keeps me up. I was working the night shift at Checkpoint Delta, about 20 miles outside Ramadi. The place was basically 4 concrete barriers and a guard shack that smelled like old coffee and cigarettes. My buddy Marcus was supposed to be with me, but he got sick from the mystery meat they served at dinner, so it was just me and Corporal Hayes watching the empty road. Around 2 a.m, I was half asleep when Hayes shook my shoulder. "Vehicle approaching," he said, pointing down the dark highway. I could see headlights coming fast, way too fast for a normal checkpoint approach. The car was weaving all over the road, wrong side, right side, like the driver was drunk or something. Hayes grabbed the radio. "Command, we got a possible hostile approaching Checkpoint Delta." The static crackled back with orders to assess and engage if necessary. My hands were shaking as I picked up my rifle. We'd done this drill 100 times in training, but this felt different. The car got closer, and I could see it was some beat-up sedan. There was a baby seat in the back window. That made my stomach drop. Who brings a baby to a checkpoint at 2 a.m? The driver was yelling something in Arabic, waving his arms out of the window. Half our guys didn't speak the language anyway, so we couldn't tell if he was threatening us or asking for help. Hayes was on the radio asking for backup when the driver started honking the horn non-stop. The sound was driving me crazy. I remember thinking about my sister's kids back in Denver and how they always cried when they heard loud noises. The car was maybe 50 feet away when Hayes shouted, "Go, go, go!" Everything happened in slow motion after that. I fired first, aiming for the windshield like we were trained. The glass exploded and the car swerved hard left before flipping 3 times. The baby in the back seat started crying, this awful wailing that cut right through the night air. When the dust settled, the driver was crumpled against the asphalt making these horrible groaning sounds. Not words, just sounds. We cuffed the passenger who somehow survived and called for medevac. Hayes filed the incident report as engaged hostile vehicle at checkpoint. 3 days later, I was reviewing dashcam footage for my report when I saw something that made my blood freeze. For just a few seconds before I fired, you could see the driver clearly. He wasn't holding a weapon. He was waving a white cloth, probably a shirt or towel. When I showed this to Commander Williams, he said it was probably a trick. But I kept that footage. I watched it over and over until I memorized every detail. The family's funeral photos showed up on a local news forum a week later. The driver's name was Ahmed Hassan. He had 3 kids. I still wake up at 2 a.m. sometimes, hearing that baby cry over the radio static. The official report said we used correct force under engagement protocols. The local reporter said something different entirely. I saved one photo from the memorial page before it got taken down. It's the only proof I have that what I remember actually happened. Sometimes I wonder if keeping it makes me a good soldier or just a coward who can't let go. My name's Kamran, and a few years back I was sent overseas with a small group, not as a soldier but as a translator. I was in the Army Reserves, and they stuck me in this role because of my language background. Honestly, I thought it would just be sitting in a chair with a headset typing, and then heading back home. Nothing crazy. Most of my time there was inside a windowless room, 4 walls, a table, some cheap folding chairs, and a constant hum of fluorescent lights. I spent weeks with blindfolded detainees sitting across from us while 2 officers argued in that clipped military English you hear in movies. They'd toss questions back and forth, and I had to translate. It was routine, boring even, until one night. That night, one of the detainees started crying, not like loud wailing, just this quiet, broken sound. Through my headset he whispered, almost too soft to catch, about his cousin who disappeared after meeting with officers. He begged me not to let them transfer him to the next base. Said if he left here, he'd be gone. I didn't even know what to do, so I typed it into my notes like usual. I slid it up the chain. The major looked at it, scribbled something on his pad, and dropped it into a bin without even glancing at the guy. I tried not to think about it, but a few weeks later, in the mess hall, someone mentioned in passing that a list of assets had been moved off-site. They didn't say names, just that the records were blacked out in the logs. I don't know why, but my stomach felt weird hearing that. There was one detainee, his name was Rahman, that stuck with me. He wasn't old, maybe early 20s. He once asked me, almost shy, if I could keep a record of his confession, just in case. I shouldn't have, but I photocopied it and slipped it inside a book in my bunk. I told myself it didn't matter, that no one would ever care. Months later, I was back in the States, back in a tiny apartment in Columbus, Ohio. Life was normal again. Grocery store runs, traffic on E70, the sound of my upstairs neighbor stomping around. For a while, I pushed everything from deployment out of my head. Then, one afternoon, a small parcel showed up at my door. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. It was of a burned-down house, nothing but blackened wood and collapsed beams. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, was 2 words. He told. I swear my hands shook so bad I almost dropped it. I turned it in to the authorities the next day, filed it with some guy in a bland office who nodded and told me they'd look into it. No one ever called me back, not once. Sometimes I think about Rahman and about the cousin he mentioned. I wonder if the house in that photo was theirs, or someone else's. I don't know. I'll never know. But here's what I learned. A single word in the wrong place can ruin someone's life. And keeping quiet doesn't make you innocent. It just makes you part of it. That's something I carry with me every damn day. I'm from Dallas originally, but this happened way overseas in 2019. I was with the 82nd Airborne then. Had to share this because it still bugs me every night. We got this mission briefing at 0600. Simple stuff. Routine patrol through this contested village about 40 clicks from our FOB. Our local guide, this guy named Malik, said it would be easy. No problems, he promised. Just walk through, show presence, head back for chow. The weird thing was my buddy Rodriguez kept complaining about his boots that morning. Said they felt too tight, like someone switched them out. I remember thinking that was stupid, but now, I don't know. Anyway, we rolled out around noon. The village looked normal enough, kids playing in the dirt roads, or women hanging laundry. Malik kept checking his phone though, which seemed odd since cell service was shit out there. Every few minutes he'd glance at the screen, then look up at the rooftops. About halfway through our route, this little kid, couldn't have been more than 7, came running out from between 2 houses. Kid was pointing up at this flat-roof building, screaming in Arabic. Malik translated quick. Bad men up there. I looked where the kid was pointing and saw these dark shapes moving around on the roof. 3, maybe 4 silhouettes. They weren't trying to hide or anything, just standing there watching us. Our squad leader, Sergeant Chen, called it in. Command told us to investigate. Standard procedure. Stack up, clear the building, neutralize any threats. We kicked down the front door and nothing. Empty downstairs. But we could hear voices upstairs, kids laughing and playing. Chen motioned for us to move up. The staircase creaked like hell under our gear. Rodriguez was right behind me, still bitching about his damn boots. When we reached the top floor, we found them. 4 local kids, maybe 8 to 12 years old, sitting in a circle. They were playing with this small round thing. Looked like a ball at first, but something was wrong about it. The metal was all rusted and dented. There were these weird markings on the side. Rodriguez took one look and said, "What the fuck is that?" That's when Chen realized what they were playing with. An old grenade, Soviet era, probably left over from decades ago. The kids thought it was a toy. Chen didn't think, just reacted. Kicked the thing right out the door. "To be safe," he said later. The blast took Rodriguez and Private Martinez immediately. Blew out half the doorway too. Mud and chunks of concrete everywhere. My ears were ringing for hours. The paperwork called it an unfortunate IED detonation. Malik disappeared that same night. Never saw him again. But here's what keeps me awake. Those silhouettes on the roof. We searched everywhere after the blast. Never found anyone. The building only had one way up or down, and we were watching it the whole time. The inquiry never asked why that grenade was just sitting there in a house full of families. They only cared if we followed protocol. I still dream about those shadows sometimes, moving around up there, watching us walk right into it.